Hi guys, it's time for another tier list video, this time the Chaos Legion Summoners. So remember to like the video and subscribe for more playtime content. Let's get into this tier list. Let's start the tier list with a great card, Quix. We're going to put Quix in the S tier. It's a great card. Some say it may be a little bit situational due to the minus range and that only being playing a factor sometimes. But the minus speed is always going to play a factor. So the minus range is more like a cherry on top from the minus speed. And it gives you access to Dragon, which is always a great option. And it's normally the strongest Splinter in the game because it allows you to play other kind of Splinters along with the powerful Dragon cards. And considering we now have a range only rule set, having a minus range will definitely be a good asset in your team, because you could either play the light summoner from Rift Watchers, or you could play Quix, or you could play General Sloan, but General Sloan is never really an option to play. And considering it's a low mana card, it allows you to have a low mana Dragon team using the cards like the reward card Trala as a tank. And it's a great key card, considering if you ever go back to a speed meta, considering we're more into like a Marty meta right now. If you do go back to speed, this card would definitely be a great asset. And it's definitely a card that everyone needs. And that's why it's in S tier. Let's talk about a personal favourite card of mine, Possibilus, aka Bill. We're going to put him at S tier because if blue didn't need any more power, he gives you so much more. He allows you to play more tanky melees in the backline. Him giving any melee card reach and being able to attack without being hit is just so powerful. It allows like a Diamond Shark to be able to get his trample out without any issues. It allows you to use the new Soulbound card, Coral, the one that has a double tap, that can now attack freely without being hit. And it just gives you so much power. And considering it's got one of the best weapon training card, Kulu Mastermind, if you have like the back of drawer in second position getting the reach and then the Kulu Mastermind giving it 2 melee, it can just put out so much damage, and it's also got tank kill. So by the time it gets into the first position, it's got void, tank kill, and it's now doing damage. And it's reversing people's speed. It's just there's so much you can do with this Possibilus. It allows you to play so many different strategies. And like the plus health is just a bonus. It's like the biggest cherry you could ever ask for. It allows you to bully through teams with the trample. Like, we love Diamond Shark for that one ability. Now every melee card on its team, Deep Lurker, can now attack twice. So if he's killed one person off, yeah, and then it triggers the trample, he can now attack another person, leave the poison, and hopefully kill two people off in one turn. It can do so much things with it. I feel like it's a very underrated card at the moment. And I feel like it's only got Skyward's potential, because if blue get any more tanks, it's just going to be even better. And I could just talk about this card forever. I might have to do a video on the card just by itself. But that's why it's in S tier, because it's just so good. And it's never a bad situation to play this card. We've talked about some great cards, and now let's talk about some cards we might not want to play. And we're going to put Tarsa in D for don't play. Because in reality, in the current meta, red's not very good, and they need their summoners to make their not so good monsters better. And Tarsa only really helps you with your tank, or it forces you to play a melee focused team. And their melee cards aren't necessarily that good, they're really slow. And red really has a focus to have range cards. That's why the jacek is a lot better, and even the Scargor is a lot better because it can make the range a little bit quicker if it gets hit. And Tarsa's just not very good. It may get better down the line if red gets better cards, but it's plus in melee ain't very effective because it's only going to really help your tank. And yeah, that's really about it. You can't really talk much about Tarsa because it don't do much, to be honest. And that's going to play other cards with red. So that's why it's in D for don't really play. Alright, let's talk about one of our main girls, Obsidian. We're going to put her at A because magic is overpowered. It's a no-brainer. So having a +1 magic is just a benefit in all regards. And it being in green and green being super magic focused, it's just so great. It's a great pairing. Unlike the Tarsa pairing, it being with magic means it can boost up more than just your tank. Obviously you have to do a magic focused team, but magic's always a great option because it can attack from the front line unlike a range option. And because it gives the +1 magic to things, it allows you to dodge void armor because some of your magic cards may have 1 magic, and the Obsidian is the only way you can get around the void armor, and that's doing a bit of chip damage towards it. And it's a great card that will come in and out of the meta dependent on when magic's dominant and when it's not. Even though it seems that green's getting a bit more versatile now with having like the Pelacors and the Pixie as an option, but Obsidian's always going to be great, and that's why it's at A tier, because you always need it leveled up just in case you have that get that ones out wall type. But obviously due to like the new card that's come out in Immortalis, you can obviously say Obsidian gets countered by its own Splinter now, which is true, but they're both so powerful you need both of them just in case you don't go into a mirror match because it's a great option. But at the end of the day, Immortalis, having that fear against it, it's always going to be there, but Obsidian is so powerful, so you definitely need that card leveled up. Let's start filling in some of the tiers. We're going to put Thaddius at B because it's the baddiest, and also it's a little bit situational. It's really great pairing with cards like obviously the Fiend in Death because it's got minus magic, and also the Mystic Elven, the neutral card, because if you just find a little bit of void armor in Death, you can obviously lock teams out of doing any damage towards it. And it's a great card for Little League because the -1 health, even though we kind of not been talking about the health much in many of the summoners, but in this one, when you play in Little League, it can make some monsters be at 1 life. So if you play cards that have redemption, for example, you can easily just finish a team off, and it can make some little instant win combos. It's a great counter to magic, so Thaddius will definitely come in and out of the meta depending on when it needs to neutralize the magic that's around. But that's why it's at B, because it's an alright card. When it does its thing, when you play it correctly, it will win you the game so well. But at the same time, it might not win you the game because you can minus magic and someone else go with a physical team or a ranged team, and then it's not really doing much apart from minusing health. And that's only whatever really, if you think about it. But that's why I said B. It will come in and out. So it's a little bit worse of Obsidian, because Obsidian you can control it with your team with plusing it, but with Thaddius, because it's a minus, you're kind of relying on what your opponent's doing, whereas with Obsidian you're controlling it. So that's the difference between it being a B and an A. But yeah, Thaddius is a great card altogether though. So let's talk about a card that will be more of the opinion based, because I feel dependent on how much you like this card, depends on where you're going to put it. But for me, I'm trying to be objective as I can with this card, and for me, Grandmaster Rathe is A. It's a great card. It generally can win you games, but you have to build a team that makes it good. For certain rule types, it will just win automatically, because the amplifier will help with the new rule types such as like Forge, Magic Reflect and Return Fire. But what it really does with the void armor that it gives to teams is it makes certain tanks unbeatable, and it also is a focus. If you focus it around a tanky taunt card, so like the Shield Bear for example, and add a Shield Repair, you can literally keep a team alive for ages and just have a supporting cast that puts out so much damage from the backline. So like Grandmaster Rathe can make you make such great teams, such powerful teams, lock you out. It's so good. And like the amplifier is great for certain cards like the Pelican Conqueror or like the Blinding Reflector. But it's more used to amplify a team. Pun intended with the ability. But it's made to boost the team's performance, and obviously if you want to make it centered around a taunt, that's even better. But it's a great counter towards magic. That's his main focus, because if you get the shields plus the void and a bit of shield repair, you can lock magic out of killing you, and then melee and range are obviously at a disadvantage already. So the card's really great. I feel like it might go into SS tier depending on what cards Light gets. But for now it's definitely an A tier, because it's going to win you games no matter what. but it's not going to be that card that automatically wins you games, especially considering the other summoners that we have around. But it's a great card altogether, and it's definitely a card you want to have in the long term, because all Light needs is just that OP monster that you want to keep alive, and it can definitely do that. We talked about the summons in between, and now it's time to talk about the best summoner, Lux. She's in SS, because she has a whole tier for herself. Considering she just boosts every single side stat apart from damage, it means you can play it with any sort of team, regardless of what damage type you want to play. And because it allows you to play any splinter, it allows certain teams to get speed benefits or like boosts that they wouldn't normally get from their normal summoners. So like red gets great options in speed and shields, whereas with Jax it kind of like only benefits the range orientated in red. But then with Lux, red's got another option. And you can see her as like a better Keyla, and we love Keyla. So considering it don't narrow it into one split like Keyla, it gives you so many options, and it's pretty much the best summoner, and it's never going to be a bad option to play this card, because it literally just comes down to your team building. So that's why it's the best card, because it's never going to be a bad situation, and it's always going to be a good choice. And if you just had this one card, this tier list has nothing to do with investments, but considering if you just had this one summoner, you can play it in 90% of the rule types. So it's such a good card, so it has to have a tier by itself for so many different reasons. So we've talked about the best card, let's talk about the worst card, and we all know exactly which card we're talking about. General Sloan. I call him Private Sloan because he's not a general of anything. And we're going to put him in F for failed, because he loses his own mirror match, and even the plus that he gives you, which is plus range, you're not going to use him in the range only rule type. You know how mad that must be? Because you're going to use any other option like Quix or the other life summoner that they have. It's such a bad card. Like, I can't put into so many words why it's so bad. I can't think of any option you want to use him, because he forces you to play range. And if you want to play a range only team, you're going to miss. And there's so many weird options. You get into first position, it won't attack. And we talked about Tarsa forcing you with melee and the reasons for that. And Obsidian forcing you to play magic and the reason why it's good. So range, if you're going to play a range card, you can play one of them at most, and it'll be at the back. So you're going to play a summoner that's only going to benefit one card. It's not going to help you in the long term. And I don't know what else to say. It's an F, and it'll probably never come into the meta. And I'm pretty sure Death had a similar summoner like this, and it's basically a copy and paste version of that. And it's an F, and that is the bottom of the Chaos Eater summoners, and everything's a benefit in that. It's just such a bad card. I'm going to call it Private Salon for the rest of its life. Let's talk about another personal favourite card of mine, Immortalis. We're going to put this at S tier. It's so overpowered. I don't think people realise how great of a card it's going to be before it came out. And that's over time people realise how powerful it was. That's why it's rivaling Lilly in pricing. Because giving any tank or monster void is so good in so many different rule types. And not even just rule types, for just games in general. Because this is a go-to card in Get Your Wands Out. For the sheer fact that Goblin Psychic is an easy pair for this card, and then if you get lucky and put it with the neutral Elven card as well, you may have the chance to actually stop any team from putting out any damage. And I personally feel like each Get Your Wand Out game that has green as an option is definitely going to be the race on who can who can lock out the other team. And the Shatter allows you to counter Grandmaster Wave. So before, Magic was so countered by this card, but now the Shatter just destroys it instantly. And I know Grud is a personal favourite card of mine, and it just gives him the protections, and it just makes him so good just putting out damage freely. And it does, at high mana games, this allows you to just make such great overpowered teams, and just puts out so much damage. And because green has so much sustain with triage or tank kill, it's just such a great card. And it made green have a bit more versatility for not just having to be a magic centered team. It can now just be a team that's putting out damage and has sustain, and it can live with just the protection and the shatter now. It's such a great card, that's why it's an S. It's a great option, and it's only going to get better over time. I doubt it'll ever come in and out of the meta. It'll only just get better depending on how much it needs to counter magic, but it'll never drop down further than A. It's definitely such a good card, and people definitely underrated it when it first came out. Now let's talk about a weird card, Waka. We're going to put him at C. At Bronze League, he's kind of good there, but apart from that, he's kind of a terrible card. The only way to really get value out of him is by playing a bunch of sneak, opportunity, snipe, scatter shot, to just put poison everywhere across the board. But the thing is, once you've done that to every monster, you don't do nothing, and you can be like, okay, he's done his job already, and you should win the game from that. But in reality, people have so many forms of healing and stuff like that. You can really get around the poison, and it's not super versatile, and it's about there. He's not really a good card. You can't really talk much about him. There was a lot of hype around him at the beginning, from that him being a promo and tied to a famous rapper, Waka Flame. But he's not a great card. He's not going to get you many wins, and even with Death has so much better card summoners you want to play. So it's kind of underwhelming. Maybe he'll come into the meta at some point. Maybe people find a good way to use him, or maybe Splinterlands will change how poisons work down the line. But for now, he's sitting at C because he does alright in Bronze, and if you play it in certain game in rule types like Little League when teams have low life, you can definitely get some value out of him there. But he's not a great card in the grand scheme of the meta, especially considering how overpowered some of the cards are. It's time for the new panda on the block. She's made us have to think about new interesting team structures because of her move types, and it's Lilly. Lilly's going into A tier. She definitely can be higher up, but for now, we're all just trying to work her out. Because currently we're using her with taunts and allowing the backline to survive, but the triage, we got to speak about the triage. The triage allows us to have the taunts at the backline and have multiple forms of hidden for it, and it can really protect your whole team to put out damage and protect it. And the only way to get around the camouflage is with scatter shot. And if you actually have a look on splitter cards, not many cards have that ability. So it's definitely something you need on hand for certain rule types, such as maybe the range one when it comes up, or things like that. I feel with the triage, she's like a go-to pick for certain rule types with like flying and poison. So shift actually heals the team over time, so you don't necessarily need to worry about cleanse or having flying on the team. And it does make you think a bit more uniquely in your structure, because you can protect people from opportunity. So you can play a lot more riskier cards knowing that they're going to be protected, as long as you structure it in a good way. But it definitely could be higher, and having the cute little look to it is just nice. But considering we might be trying to compare it to Kitty from before, it's definitely not as powerful as Kitty. But it's definitely something that could be abused depending on what cards are about and stuff like that, because the camouflage can definitely bring up some unique situations. So if there's a card that comes out down the line where the camouflage can be abused, it's definitely going to be a key card. But you definitely want it on hand, because getting access to Dragon, it's so good. And then having the triage, you can never know the possibility you can come up with. It seems that we're filling up the A tiers, but there are so many good summoners and they can all be used so many ways. And for the next one, it's Astral Entity, that re-nickname Astray. It allows you to play a resurrecting Marty strategy, and that breeds so many opportunities with Death. So you can allow the Death Ring to get bonus speed, and then there's more opportunities for it to get a better fire. Plus, with the dodge added on top of the summoner, Riffing becomes a whole new monster that you can be played. And considering it gives things dodge, it gives other tanks in Death a bit more defenses down the line. And the -2 shields allow you to counter cards like Rathe, Keyla, so Cursed Windiku can get its thorns out a lot easier and puts out so much more damage. But it's definitely a handy card to have with Death in high mana, because it will allow you to have a bit more, like I said, protections, and the minus shields will allow you to just get through teams so easily. For me though, it's a bit weird for Death, But I feel like as time goes on with a lot of these new summoners, like, cause I feel like we got a lot of the summoners really quickly, so we didn't have enough time to play them out and work them fully out. But I feel like this is definitely going to be a great addition for Death. It gives it a bit more possibilities to be a bit less anti-magic, and definitely give it more opportunity than the higher mana games, because Death really does have some great high mana cards, but it's how you can play them. And this definitely gives you more opportunities, and maybe down the line it might be S tier. But for now, it's definitely A. It's definitely a great card you need on hand, and if you need an option other than Thaddius, yeah, it's definitely going to be the pick you need. It's time to bring up the last and least Chaos Legion summoner, but it's probably one of the best ones. You could probably compare it to Lux, but Keyla is definitely S tier. For the sheer fact, it's probably the second most versatile summoner. The only reason it's not as versatile is because it's tied to one splinter, which is blue. But being tied to the blue splinter, it couldn't be any better splinter to be tied to. In my eyes, it could be an epic or a legendary summoner, for the sheer fact you can play it with a melee, magic, range. It makes no difference what team you want to build a bit, because the plus shield and the plus speed is always going to be great. And it's a great card for Lilly, because you can get around the sneak meta that comes in with that. And there's really hardly any thoughts with the card. And with it being a speed meta, it's a card you're going to need along with the other ones. And it's really too good of a card. You can build any team around this year, and in my mind, a sneaky rule set that is really good in is flying, because it gives every card a shield to protect itself from the single round. But there's nothing more I can really bring up about the card. You just need it maxed out, and you just need to be ready to either use it or it to be used on you, because it's so good of a card. The only card probably better than it is Lux, and the only reason Lux is better because it's neutral and it gives it one more extra stat, which is the health. But Keyla is one monster of a card. So here is my current Chaos Legion summoner tier list. For me, this is my personal opinion. Things could change over time, but we can wait and see. But get in the comments, let me know what you think of mine and where you would change it. And like the video, subscribe for more play to earn content, and see you next time.